What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 8 prediction video. Today I want to talk about what I believe Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen will name their child. As of right now, we still don't know how many children they will have. Some people say she could be pregnant with twins, while other people say she could be pregnant with triplets, which would play into the dragon has 3 heads prophecy. I really don't know how many babies she will have, but I think it's safe to say that she will at least have one. The evidence that foreshadowed this during Season 7 was absolutely overwhelming. I made a video just last week, and in that video I compiled multiple scenes of foreshadowing, along with a clip from the writers of the show who basically confirmed she will be pregnant. Just in case some of you didn't see that video, I will play it after I tell you what I think their baby's name could be. If Jon and Daenerys do have a son together, I believe I found the answer for what the name is. I have seen some people try and guess what they could name their baby, but I haven't seen too many people use any of the evidence from the books. I know the show has moved past the books now, but they still use a ton of references from them. And this name was said during one of Jon's chapters in A Storm of Swords, which is a book they adapted very well, but they couldn't use this yet until the right time. And next season would be the perfect time because Jon Snow will finally have a child of his own to name. I have heard some people say that if they have a boy, they could name him Eddard, after Jon Snow's father. Ned Stark was not Jon Snow's biological father, but you know what I mean. He raised Jon Snow as his son, and Jon very well may want to honor him by giving his own son the name Eddard, even if the baby takes the Targaryen last name. This was actually going to be the name of Robb Stark's son. During the Red Wedding, this is what Talisa said she wanted to name their baby, and it was a very touching scene.
Boy or girl?
I don't know. But if it's a boy, I know what we should name him.
Oh, do you? It seems to me the father should have some say in his son's naming.
Eddard.
Unfortunately, we all know how that event ended. Since little Eddard was never born, the showrunners might decide to use that name again for Jon and Dany's baby. That's if they do in fact have a son. And personally, I wouldn't mind one bit if that's what they named their baby. Eddard is a fine name for a boy, but it wouldn't be my first option for a prediction. If Jon and Daenerys happen to have a girl, I have heard people say that they might name her Lyanna, after Jon Snow's mother. I wouldn't mind that either. Lyanna is a beautiful name, and I don't think Daenerys would mind that either. She knows that's the woman her brother Rhaegar basically died for. They could give the child a northern name for its first name, then make its last name Targaryen, but Lyanna would not be my first option for a prediction either. In the books, Jon Snow briefly considers having a son of his own, and when he thinks about this, there is only one name that comes to mind when he considers what he would name him. At the end of the 3rd book of Storm of Swords, Jon Snow is at the Wall, and this is when Stannis Baratheon is at the Wall too. Some of you should remember this from the show. In Season 5, Stannis wanted Jon's help to win over the North. Stannis wanted to legitimize Jon by giving him the last name Stark, and he was also going to give him Winterfell.
I don't know what I have left to give you. You can give me the North. I can't. Even if I wanted to, I'm a bastard. Snow.
Kneel before me. Lay your sword at my feet. Pledge me your service and you'll rise again as Jon Stark, Lord of Winterfell.
Stannis offers this same thing to Jon in the books, but he will only offer it under a few conditions. Stannis wanted Jon to marry one of the wildlings in order to make the Northern and Wildling alliance even stronger. In the books, this woman's name is Val, and she is the sister to Mance's wife. She is said to be very beautiful, and Jon Snow even thinks about how attractive she is on more than one occasion. But Val is a stranger to him. Jon does not know her at all, and Val is not the type of woman to be forced into a marriage. Jon wanted to be legitimized as a Stark, and he did want Winterfell, but he couldn't do it under these conditions, but he did consider it, and this is what he thought. It seemed an easy choice when he thought of it in those terms, though if Ygritte had still been alive, it might have been even easier. Val was a stranger to him. She was not hard on the eyes, certainly, and she had been sister to Mance Rayder's queen, but still. I would need to steal her if I wanted her love, but she might give me children. I might someday hold a son of my own blood in my arms. A son was something Jon Snow had never dared dream of since he decided to live his life on the Wall. I could name him Robb. Val would want to keep her sister's son, but we could foster him at Winterfell, and Gilly's boy as well. So, as you can see, the only time Jon ever considered having a son, there was only one name he could imagine naming him, and that was Robb, after his half-brother Robb Stark. I think since Dan and Dave have adapted so much of A Storm of Swords to the television show, they may have had plans to adapt this piece of information when the time came for Jon to have a son. They could name him Robb Targaryen, giving it an ice and fire name. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we still don't know what their child will be. It could be a boy, or it could be a girl, or maybe even both, since she could have twins, triplets, or so on and so forth. But I think if they do have a son together, Jon will want to name him Robb, since this is the one name he considered naming his son in the books. Let me know what you think about this idea though. Do you believe they will use this name, or do you think they will use another one? For those of you who are still unsure of them having a child together, I will recommend that you keep watching the video to see all the evidence that was foreshadowed in Season 7. But if you already watched that video last week, then I just want to thank you for stopping by and watching today's video. I really appreciate that, along with everyone who supports the channel on Patreon.
Do it. Save him.
There is a price.
You have gold, whatever you want.
It's not a matter of gold. This is blood magic. Only death pays for life.
Daenerys Targaryen is 100% without a doubt pregnant by Jon Snow. There was so much heavy foreshadowing at the end of Season 7, I think almost everyone feels the same way. But until Season 8 airs, we still don't know if this will become a fact or not. But I may have found some new evidence that proves she is and will be pregnant next season. Don't ask me why, but last night I was up until about 5 AM listening to the damn commentary tracks on the Season 7 Blu-ray. For those of you that don't know, the Season 7 Blu-ray has some bonus features, and one of those features has commentary by some of the actors and writers on a few episodes. But the one I am referring to is the Season 7 finale, the very last episode of the season. During this episode, there is commentary by Kit Harington, Lena Headey, and Dan and Dave, which are the writers and producers of this show. They basically just talk about the episode and how some of the scenes were filmed and things like that. But the writers of this show said something very interesting that may reveal a huge plot point next season. Before I play the clips, I just want to preface this by pointing something out that may explain why they were so comfortable with saying this in the first place.
The one guy left listening to this DVD commentary is depraved. No offense to you, sir, but I'm just saying.
No offense, Mom.
As they were talking about the episode, the writer started to joke about how ridiculous it was to record commentary for the DVDs in the first place. They know that no one ever really listens to these bonus features, so they started to joke about how only one person is probably even listening to what they were saying about the episode. And I think them joking around about that may have caused them to put their guard down momentarily. They didn't expect too many people to listen to them talk about things that typically aren't very important. But thankfully, I actually sat there and listened to all of it because what they said later on may have been a massive spoiler. As they were talking about the episode, we get to the scene in the Dragon Pit with Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen. And this is when Daenerys says she can no longer have children because Mirri Maz Duur said she couldn't. And that's when Jon says maybe she wasn't a reliable source of information, meaning maybe Daenerys can get pregnant after all. But the most important thing about this scene is what the writer said as they were watching it. Just take a listen for yourself.
Yeah, she says that I'm not, she can't have children.
We'll see about
Do you
that.
think?
We'll see about that.
You haven't met Mini Kit?
You haven't met Little Jon Snow.
You haven't met the Little Jon.
That was Kit Harington, who plays Jon Snow, and that was also Dan and Dave, who are the writers of this show. When Kit Harington says Daenerys can't get pregnant, the writers said, "We will see about that." Then they started laughing about Daenerys meeting the little Jon Snow. Let's listen to that one more time, just in case you were reading the chat or something like that. Pay very close attention.
Yeah, she says that I'm not, she can't have children.
We'll see about
Do you
that.
think?
We'll see about that.
You haven't met Mini
You
Kit.
haven't met Little Jon Snow.
You haven't met the Little John.
Now, I don't know about you, but that sounded like a confirmation to me. Dan and Dave are cocky just enough to say something like that during a DVD commentary that they think no one is listening to in the first place. I'm sure some of you will think they were just joking the whole time and it doesn't actually mean anything, but I would have to disagree. I think they let their guard down long enough to let something slip. When you combine this with all the heavy foreshadowing at the end of Season 7, I would bet money on Daenerys being pregnant next season. In the last 2 episodes of the season, there were over a half a dozen hints at Daenerys being able to have children again in the future. The first subtle hint was during Daenerys and Tyrion's conversation about succession and who will rule after Daenerys is gone.
How do we ensure your vision endures? After you break the wheel, how do we make sure it stays broken?
You want to know who sits on the Iron Throne after I'm dead? Is that it?
You say you can't have children, but there are other ways of choosing a successor.
Tyrion wanted to know how Daenerys intended on keeping the wheel broken once she dies, but she didn't want to think about this before she even sat upon the Iron Throne. But this was a big concern for Tyrion because he assumed Daenerys can't have any children because she said so herself. That may not seem like foreshadowing when you just watch that scene by itself, but in the same episode there was another hint with Jon Snow when he went beyond the wall. Jon tried to give Longclaw back to the Mormonts because he didn't feel like it was right to keep something that had been in their family for centuries. But Jorah Mormont knew his father wanted Jon to have the sword, and he knows the sword will serve Jon well, and his children after him.
I've forfeited the right to claim this sword. It's yours. It'd serve you well, and your children after you.
Even though Jon and Daenerys just met, you could see they were starting to like each other, and the longing looks they gave each other hinted at something more than just a military alliance. It was only a matter of time before they began a romantic relationship, and it will be Jon's seed that finally allows Daenerys to have a healthy baby. At the end of this same episode is when Viserion is killed by the Night King. After Jon makes it back to the wall, he has a touching scene with Daenerys where she says the dragons were her children, and they would be the only children she would ever have.
The dragons are my children. They're the only children I'll ever have. Do you understand?
The dragons would have been the only children she would have if they had all lived until Dany died, but Viserion's death was a payment for life. Only death can pay for life, and her losing that child will grant her the opportunity to have an actual child of her own with Jon Snow. In the very next episode, there are several more instances of foreshadowing. In the Dragon Pit, Jon hands Daenerys a piece of skull from a dragon. And I believe this was symbolic for Jon giving Daenerys an actual baby dragon, meaning a child. Then they focused the camera on them handing this dragon skull back and forth to each other, and it was just another subtle hint at them having their own baby dragon together. Then of course this is immediately followed with their conversation about Daenerys being the only Targaryen left, which we know isn't true because Jon is a Targaryen. But not only that, they will produce an heir together.
And your family hasn't seen its end. You're still here.
I can't have children.
Who told you that?
The witch who murdered my husband.
Has it occurred to you she might not have been a reliable source of information?
Dany says she can't have kids, and Jon says Mary Mazdur was full of shit. Yes, you can have kids. And he intends on proving this later in the episode when they have epic boat sex together. When you combine all of this with what the writers of the show said during the DVD commentary, I think it's blatantly obvious what will happen next. But let me know what you think. Do you think the writers confirmed Daenerys' pregnancy when they said we will see about her not being able to have children? Or do you think they were only joking and all of this foreshadowing means nothing? I am curious to know if there is anyone out there who believes Jon and Daenerys will not have a kid together. So put all your thoughts and questions down below in the comment section. I want to thank everyone for stopping by to check out the video. I really do appreciate that. And I also want to thank all of my Patreon supporters. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow when I upload the next video. Bye.